Hello, my friends. I'm glad you're still here. The move to the new studio took a bit longer than expected, but everything is back up and running. I may have to deal with some new background noise, but I think overall it will all work out perfectly. So let's start with a very short story first. And if you notice anything wrong with the recording, please say so in the comment. And let me do some more experimentation, as it were, so we can get it all sounding better. So today, here is a short story by Jack London. I hope you enjoy. The Sickness of Lone Chief by Jack London. This is a tale that was told to me by two old men. We sat in the smoke of mosquito smudge in the cool of the day, which was midnight, and even and anon throughout the telling we smote lustily and with purpose at such of the winged pests as braved the smoke for a snack at our hides. To the right, beneath us, 20 feet down the crumpling bank, the Yukon gurgled lazily. To the left, on the rose-leaf rim of the low-lying hills, smoldered the sleepy sun, which saw no sleep that night, nor was destined to see sleep for many nights to come. The old men who sat with me and valorously slew mosquitoes were Lone Chief and Mutsak, erstwhile comrades in arms, and now withered repositories of tradition and ancient happening. They were the last of their generation, and without honor among the younger set which had grown up on the farthest fringe of a mining civilization. Who cared for tradition in these days, when spirits could be evoked from black bottles, and black bottles could be evoked from the complacent white men for a few hours' sweat or a mangy fur? Of what potency the fearful rites and masked mysteries of shamanism, when daily that living wonder, the steamboat, coughed and spluttered up and down the Yukon in defiance of all law, a veritable fire-breathing monster? And of what value was hereditary prestige, when he who now chopped the most wood, or best conned a stern-wheeler through the island mazes, attained the chiefest consideration of his fellows? Of a truth, having lived too long, they had fallen on evil days, these two old men, Lone Chief and Mutsak, and in the new order they were without honor or place. So they waited drearily for death. And the while their hearts warmed to the strange white men who shared with them the torments of the mosquito smudge, and lent ready ear to their tales of old time before the steamboat came. So a girl was chosen for me, Lone Chief was saying, his voice shrill and piping, ever and again dropped plummet-like into a hoarse and rattling bass, and just as one become accustomed to it, soaring upward into the thin treble, alternate cricket chirpings and bullfrog croakings, as it were. So a girl was chosen for me, he said, for my father, who was Kakstaka, the otter, was angered because I looked not with a fearful eye upon women. He was an old man, and chief of his tribe. I was the last of his sons to be alive, and through me only could he look to see his blood go down among those to come after, and as yet unborn. But know, O white man, that I was very sick, and when neither the hunting nor the fishing delighted me, and by meat my belly was not made warm, how should I look with favor upon women, or prepare for the feast of marriage, or look forward to the prattle and troubles of little children? Mutsak interrupted, for not had Lone Chief fought in the arms of a great bear till his head was cracked and blood ran from out his ears? Lone Chief nodded vigorously. Mutsak speaks true. In the time that follows, my head was well, and it was not well. For though the flesh healed and the sore went away, yet was I sick inside. When I walked, my legs shook under me, and when I looked at the light, my eyes became filled with tears. And when I opened my eyes, the world outside went around and around. And when I closed my eyes, my head inside went around and around, and all the things I had ever seen went around and around inside my head. And above my eyes there was a great pain, as though something heavy rested always upon me, or like a band that is drawn tight and gives much hurt. And speech was slow to me, and I waited long for each right word to come to my tongue. And when I waited not long, all manner of words crowded in, and my tongue spoke foolishness. I was very sick, and when my father, the otter, brought the girl Kisan before me, who was a young girl and strong, my sister's child, Mutsak broke in. Strong-hipped for children was Kisan, and straight-legged and quick of foot. She made better moccasins than any of all the young girls, and the bark rope she braided was the stoutest. And she had a smile in her eyes, and a laugh on her lips. And her temper was not hasty, nor was she unmindful that men gave the law, and women ever obey. As I say, I was very sick, Lone Chief went on, and when my father, the otter, brought the girl Kisan before me, I said rather should they make me ready for burial than for marriage. Whereat the face of my father went black with anger, and he said that I should be served according to my wish, and that I, who was yet alive, should be made ready for death as one already dead. Which be not the way of our people, O white man, spoke up Mutsak. For know that these things that were done to Lone Chief, it was our custom to do only to dead men, but the otter was very angry. Aye, said Lone Chief, my father, the otter, was a man short of speech and swift of deed, and he commanded the people to gather before the lodge wherein I lay. And when they were gathered, he commanded them to mourn for his son who is dead. And before the lodge they sang the death song, Ooh, ha, ha, ah, ik, klukuk, wailed Mutsak, in so excellent an imitation that all the tendrils of my spine crawled and curved in sympathy. And inside the lodge, continued Lone Chief, my mother blackened her face with soot, and flung ashes upon her head, and mourned for me as one already dead. For so my father commanded. So Okiakuta, my mother, mourned with much noise, and beat her breasts and tore her hair, and likewise Huniak, my sister, and Shinata, my mother's sister, and the noise they made caused a great ache in my head, and I felt that I would surely and immediately die. And the elders of the tribe gathered about me where I lay, and discussed the journey my soul must take. One spoke of the thick and endless forests where lost souls wandered crying, and where I, too, might chance to wander and never see the end. And another spoke of the big rivers, rapid with bad water, where evil spirits shrieked and lifted up their formless arms to drag one down by the hair. For these rivers, all said together, a canoe must be provided me. And yet another spoke of the storms, such as no man ever saw, when the stars rained down out of the sky, and the earth gaped wide in many cracks, and all the rivers in the heart of the earth rushed out and in. Whereupon they that sat by me flung up their arms and wailed loudly, and those outside heard, and wailed more loudly. And as to them I was as dead, so was I to my own mind dead. I did not know when or how, yet did I know that I had surely died. And Akiakuta, my mother, laid beside me my squirrel-skin parka, Also she laid beside me my parka of caribou hide, and my raincoat of seal gut, and my wet weather mucklucks, that my soul should be warm and dry on its long journey. Further, there was mention made of a steep hill, thick with briars and devil's club, and she fetched heavy moccasins to make the way easy for my feet. And when the elders spoke of the great beasts I should have to slay, the young men laid beside me my strongest bow and straightest arrows, my throwing stick, my spear and knife. And when the elders spoke of the darkness and silence of the great spaces my soul must wander through, my mother wailed yet more loudly and flung yet more ashes upon her head. And the girl Kisan crept in, very timid and quiet, and dropped a little bag upon the things for my journey. And in the little bag, I knew, were the flint and steel and the well-dried tinder for the fires my soul must build. And the blankets were chosen which were to be wrapped around me. Also were the slaves selected that were to be killed that my soul might have company. There were 7 of these slaves, for my father was rich and powerful, and it was fit that I, his son, should have proper burial. These slaves we had gotten were from the Muckamucks, who lived down the Yukon. On the morrow, Skolka, the shaman, would kill them, one by one, so that their souls should go questing with mine through the unknown. Among other things, they would carry my canoe till we came to the big river, rapid with bad water, and there being no room, and their work being done, they would come no further, but remain and howl forever in the dark and endless forest. As I looked at my fine warm clothes and my blankets and weapons of war, and as I thought of the 7 slaves to be slain, I felt proud of my burial, and knew that I must be the envy of many men. And all the while my father, the otter, sat silent and black. And all that day and night the people sang my death song, and beat the drums, till it seemed that I had surely died 1,000 times. But in the morning my father arose and made talk. He had been a fighting man all his days, he said, and as the people knew. Also the people knew that it were a greater honor to die fighting in battle than on the soft skins by the fire. And since I was to die anyways, it were well that I should go against the Muckamucks and be slain. Thus would I attain honor and chieftainship in the final abode of the dead. And thus would honor remain to my father, who was the otter. Wherefore he gave command that a war party be made ready to go down the river, and that when we came upon the Muckamucks I was to go forth alone from my party, giving semblance of battle, and so be slain. Nay, but hear, O white man, cried Mutsak, unable longer to contain himself. Skolka, the shaman, whispered long that night in the ear of the otter, and it was his doing that Lone Chief should be sent forth to die. For the otter being old, and Lone Chief the last of his sons, Skolka had it in mind to become chief himself over the people. And when the people had made great noise for a day and a night, and Lone Chief was yet alive, Skolka was become afraid that he would not die. It was the counsel of Skolka, with fine words of honor and deeds, that broke through the mouth of the otter. Aye, replied Lone Chief, well did I know it was the doing of Skolka, but I was unmindful of being very sick. I had no heart for anger, nor belly for stout words, and I cared little one way or the other, only I cared to die and have done with it all. So, O white man, the war party was made ready. No tried fighters were there, nor elders crafty and wise, naught but 50 of young men who had seen little fighting, and all the village gathered together above the bank of the river to see us depart. And we departed amid great rejoicing, and the singing of my praises. Even thou, O white man, wouldst rejoice at sight of a young man going forth to battle, even though doomed to die. So we went forth, the 50 young men, and Methzak came also, for he was likewise young and untried. And by command of my father, the otter, my canoe was lashed on either side to the canoe of Methzak and the canoe of Kanukut. Thus my strength saved me from the work of the paddles, so that, for all of my sickness, I might make a brave show at the end. And thus we went down the river. Nor will I weary thee with the tale of the journey, which was not long, and not far above the village of the Muckamucks we came upon 2 of their fighting men in canoes, that fled at the sight of us. And then, according to the command of my father, my canoe was cast loose, and I was left to drift down all alone. Also, according to his command, were the young men to see me die, so that they might return and tell the manner of my death. Upon this, my father, the otter, and Skolka, the shaman, had been very clear, with stern promises of punishment in case they were not obeyed. I dipped my paddle and shouted words of scorn after the fleeing warriors, and the vile things I shouted made them turn their heads in anger. And when they beheld that the young men held back, that I came on alone. Whereupon, when they had made a safe distance, the 2 warriors drew their canoes somewhat apart, and waited side by side for me to come between. And I came between, spear in hand, and singing the war song of my people. Each flung a spear, but I bent my body, and the spears whistled over me, and I was unhurt. Then, and we were all together, we 3, I cast my spear at the one to the right, and it drove into his throat, and he pitched backward into the water. Great was my surprise thereat that I had killed a man. I turned to the one on the left, and drove strong with my paddle, to meet death face to face, but the man's second spear, which was his last, but bit into the flesh of my shoulder. Then I was upon him, making no cast, but pressing the point into his breast and working it through him with both my hands, and while I worked, pressing with all my strength, he smote me upon my head once and twice with the broad of his paddle. Even as the point of the spear sprang out beyond his back, he smote me upon the head. There was a flash as of bright light, and inside my head I felt something give with a snap, just like that, with a snap. And the weight that pressed above my eyes so long was lifted, and the band that bound my brows so tight was broken, and a great gladness came upon me, and my heart sang with joy. This be death, I thought, wherefore I thought that death was very good. And then I saw the 2 empty canoes, and I knew that I was not dead, but well again. The blows of the man upon my head had made me well. I knew that I had killed, and the taste of the blood made me fierce, and I drove my paddle into the breast of the Yukon, and urged my canoe toward the village of the Muckamucks. The young men behind me gave a great cry. I looked over my shoulder and saw the water forming white from their paddles. "Aye, it formed white from our paddles," said Methzak, "for we remembered the command of the otter and of Skolka, that we behold with our own eyes the manner of Lone Chief's death. A young man of the Muckamucks, on his way to a salmon trap, beheld the coming of Lone Chief, and of the 50 men behind him. And the young man fled in his canoe straight for the village, that alarm might be given and preparation made. But Lone Chief hurried after him, and we hurried after Lone Chief to behold the manner of his death. Only in the face of the village, as the young man leaped to the shore, Lone Chief rose up in his canoe and made a mighty cast, and the spear entered the body of the young man above the hips, and the young man fell upon his face. Whereupon Lone Chief leaped up the bank, war club in hand, and a great war cry on his lips, and dashed into the village. The first man he met was Itwili, chief over the Muckamucks, and him Lone Chief smote upon the head with his war club, so that he fell dead upon the ground. And for fear he might not behold the manner of his death, we too, the 50 young men, leaped to the shore and followed Lone Chief into the village. Only the Muckamucks did not understand, and thought we had come to fight, so their bow thongs sang, and their arrows whistled among us. Whereat we forgot our errand, and fell upon them with our spears and clubs, and they being unprepared, there was a great slaughter. With my own hands I slew their shaman, proclaimed Lone Chief, his withered face awork with memory of that old-time day. With my own hands I slew him, who was a greater shaman than Skolka, our own shaman. And each time I faced a man, I thought, now cometh death. And each time I slew the man, and death came not. It seemed the breath of life was strong in my nostrils, and I could not die. And we followed Lone Chief the length of the village and back again, continued Mutsak. Like a pack of wolves we followed him back and forth, and here and there, till there were no more Muckamucks left to fight. Then we gathered together 50 men-slaves, and doubled as many women and countless children, and we set fire and burned all the houses and lodges and departed, and that was the last of the Muckamucks. And that was the last of the Muckamucks, Lone Chief repeated exultantly. And when we came to our own village, the people were amazed at our burden of wealth and slaves, and in that I was still alive they were more amazed, and my father, the Otter, came trembling with gladness at the things I had done, for he was an old man, and I the last of his sons. And all the tried fighting men came, and the crafty and wise, till all the people were gathered together. And then I arose, and with a voice like thunder, commanded Skolka, the shaman, to stand forth. "Eh, O white man," exclaimed Mutsak, with a voice like thunder that made the people shake at the knees and become afraid. And when Skolka had stood forth, Lone Chief went on, I said that I had not minded to die. Also I said it were not well that disappointment came to the evil spirits that wait beyond the grave. Wherefore I deemed it fit that the soul of Skolka fare forth into the unknown, where doubtless it would howl forever in the dark and endless forest. And then I slew him, as he stood there, in the face of all the people. Even I, Lone Chief, with my own hands, slew Skolka, the shaman, in the face of all the people. And when a murmuring arose, I cried aloud, with a voice like thunder, prompted Mutsak. With a voice like thunder, I cried aloud, Behold, O ye people! I am Lone Chief, slayer of Skolka, the false shaman. Alone among men have I passed down through the gateway of death and returned again. Mine eyes have looked upon the unseen things, my ears have heard the unspoken words. Greater am I than Skolka, the shaman. Greater than all shamans am I. Likewise am I a greater chief than my father, the Otter. All his days did he fight with the Muckamucks, and lo, in one day have I destroyed them all. As with the breathing of a breath have I destroyed them. Wherefore, my father, the Otter, being old, and Skolka the shaman being dead, I shall be both chief and shaman. Henceforth shall I be both chief and shaman to you, O my people. And if any man dispute my word, let that man stand forth. I waited, but no man stood forth. Then I cried, Ho! I have tasted blood. Now bring meat, for I am hungry. Break open the caches, tear down the fish racks, and let the feast be big. Let there be merriment and songs, not of burial, but marriage. And last of all, let the girl Kisan be brought, the girl Kisan who is to be the mother of the children of Lone Chief. And at my words, and because that he was very old, my father, the otter, wept like a woman, and put his arms about my knees. And from that day I was both chief and a shaman, and great honor was mine, and all men yielded me obedience. Until the steamboat came, Mutsak prompted. Aye, said Lone Chief, until the steamboat came.